Welcome back to the Celtic Soul podcast with me, Andrew Milne. My guest on the show today will be journalist and author Steve Finan. This episode has been sponsored by St Margaret's Celtic Supporters Club, and I would like to thank them for all their support over many years of both the fanzine and now the podcast. If your business or Celtic Supporters Club would like to sponsor the podcast, please email us at info@celticfanzine.com. You can also contact us through the website or message us on social media. So another defeat last night. I have to say, I wasn't that confident before the game after the Rangers performance. But we did start well. I was surprised to see Ajeti and Griffith starting up front. But after about 10 minutes, Milne got into the game and they just looked on a different level to us. Shane Duffy now joins a long list of Celtic centre-halves who are getting stick for performances in Europe. He's in there now with the likes of Bobo Baldy and Gary Caldwell and many others. So Shane, you're not the only one to have really put in a poor performance on a European night, but you need to learn from this and you need to learn fast because this is an important season. The second half was much better. The substitutions, Elanusi, Christie and Roderick really gave us something. We started to look like a team. We controlled the ball. We had passages where the passing was brilliant. And we got our just rewards when Elanusi popped in with the goal. I can't help thinking what would have been with 60,000 of us in when that goal hit the back of the net. Memories of that Scott McDonald goal when we came back against Milan before, but sure, it's not to be without fans. It's just not the same. We keep going over it and over it and over it again. But the third goal, does it mean anything in the whole shape of things? Not really. We had to go for the game. We had to try and get a point out of it. But we move on. Aberdeen now, Sunday, it's going to be tough. And then we're away to Lille. So the games are coming thick and fast. We will get the players back that are out with COVID. We will get the players that are out injured back. And hopefully we will improve. I don't think it's lights out for Lennon just yet. But the next couple of games will play a big part on who's manager at the end of the season, I do think. Steve Finan is the author of Celtic in the Black and White Era. He grew up a Dundee United fan, but he would travel around Scotland attending games from Aberdeen to Alloa and Dunfermline to Glasgow. A journalist by trade who never, surprisingly enough, covered sport on a full-time basis. He was always on the news desk, but he did cover a few Celtic matches, including one of Liam Brady's last games in charge. Hi Steve, you're very welcome to the Celtic Soul podcast. As someone who has attended so many football stadiums, did you ever think you would see a time when there would be no fans inside football stadiums?
No, I'm getting withdrawal symptoms. It's actually hurtful to see. And I feel sorry for the players. Sometimes when they score, they're going to a slide underneath and there's nobody there. And I think when you look back at people's highlights reels, you'll see people scoring great goals and then it'll look weird because there's no fans there. I've really not liked it. I'm desperate for the football to come back and to get back to the football.
Well, I can't disagree with you there. Watching the Milan game last night, we were up against it because, you know, they've had a great start to the season and we are having few problems. But at the same time, you know, 60,000 Celtic fans in there under lights certainly gives you an advantage that an empty stadium now doesn't, in my opinion, give you a home advantage.
Yeah. When you look back at how the Celtic support rocketed Celtic on to beat Barcelona that time, just think what that would have been last night with Celtic Park rocking, really sort of pushing them on. Would have been a different game altogether.
Yeah, especially after we scored. I think, in fairness, the players have come in for a lot of criticism, and rightly so after Saturday's performance. But I do believe, you know, after we got the goal, that we could have witnessed another great night at Celtic Park. But it's gone now, and we move on, and it looks like it's going to be some time before we return to full stadiums. Yeah. I suppose we've had a few trial runs with 300 fans in Ross County, but I spoke to someone that was at that game, and they said, you know, it's not football as we know it.
It's not. No.
But anyway, congratulations on the new book. I can only describe it as a thing of beauty. It arrived with me last week, and I get a lot of books sent to me to review, but I find myself continually looking through this one. Every time I pick it up, I find a different picture. I suppose the thing that sticks out, we've managed to get over 300 pictures related to Celtic that have never been published before. Just take us through the project.
Right. Well, I have access to an archive, a vast archive of photos that's largely lain untouched and uncurated for decade upon decade. And that is why I think I've managed to put out a Celtic book that has never been done before, and it can never be done again because there's never going to be a repository of pictures that will be like this that you've not seen before. And to be honest, the joy of doing this I've worked on several projects. I've done books about old football team lineups, and then there was Little Over the Turnstiles, which is about old football grounds. But doing this, I'll need to talk you through finding the Hampden in the Sun 1957 pictures. I've used one of them on the front, and to be honest, I've sometimes looked at the work of photographers from back in the day, and you think, what were you thinking? That's rubbish. But this one, honestly, he could have sat there for a year and not composed the pictures any better. With the sun breaking through, there's a sort of heat haze over the crowd in the Rangers' end. It's maybe a haze of anger, but those pictures were Hampden, and then Somerville Drive in the background, the houses overlooking, and the Old North Stand. You should have seen my face as I'm looking at this. I'm sitting in a room and I'm looking through pictures, and the only person I had to speak to was a girl who was doing research on something to do with economics or something. And I rushed over and said, look at these. And she, to be fair, was moved and said, yeah, that's a cracking picture. But when you see it, honestly, your heart soars. Your heart says, no matter which team you support, these are among the best football pictures you've ever seen from any era. And I am really, really proud to have brought these to the Celtic support. I've actually I've sent a couple of copies of the book to Celtic themselves, and I've put a wee note in with the books saying, I've got these high-res pictures of Celtic in the black and white era, especially the Hampden in the Sun ones. They would blow up to any size you like. You are free to have them, because these things deserve to sit on a wall in Celtic Park somewhere so that people can see them, because they are so good. This isn't just history that you look at. This is, when you see these pictures, it's something that you feel. It touches you deep inside, because you can see the guys, the supporters celebrating. You can see the players on the pitch doing so well. There's Nearly Mochan, for instance, going in on the keeper with the vast ranks of Celtic support behind him, and the North Stand behind that. And honestly, this is a work of art. I'd go as far as to say that. I sound like I'm getting a little bit arty-farty and photo-like, but these are pictures that deserve to be seen. They deserve to be put out for the history of the game, of Celtic's history. They deserve to be shown and widely seen. So those are the ones I'm most proud of. But if you go through the book, guys, you will see Celtic players, the support that you've never seen before. And like I say, I couldn't be prouder of it. Now, what I do, or what I've done all my life, is I've worked for newspapers, but I've always been on the news side of things. Because the real power in any newspaper is on the news desk. So I was news editor, chief sub-editor, that sort of thing. But you always pay attention to what's happening at the time. Sports sells your paper. So I've been a football daft my entire life, and I've been taken to football games all over Scotland. My father, he loved getting out on a Saturday for a day trip. And even though I was raised a Dun United supporter, and as all Celtic supporters will know, you cannot change your team. But so that's my team, and I'm not going to lie to anybody about that. But my father would take me to places, and one of his favourite players, I have to say, in fact, his very most favourite player was Bobby Evans. And there's a picture in the book, and I explain it's quite a personal thing for me that my father, the way my father thought of Bobby Evans as a man who would never, ever give up, a man who would keep on going, great attitude, wanted to be a winner, and drove everybody else on. And my father would point to him and say, be like him, do what he does. Doesn't matter what you're doing in your life. If you can comport yourself like Bobby Evans does, then you're doing okay. And that stuck with me. So when I see this picture, I find a picture of Bobby Evans. And for once, he's got his shirt tucked in, which he didn't used to do. But he's running along, and man, he looks like a football player. He looks like somebody who's thinking, I'm going to go in for a 50-50, and I'm going to way to win this. And see, that sort of thing. Again, it touches you. And what I hope with this book is, what I pray will happen, is that people will flick through it and they'll see a player or a game or a shot at the stadium and think, I remember that. And it'll take them back to the people they were with at the time, what they were thinking at the time, what they were at the time. And if I can manage that with just one picture, then that's enough for me. That's me done my job. I've put a picture out there that has absolutely touched a nostalgic thing inside people. Because there's a book, I reckon, if you want to know more about Celtic's history, then read the book. But even more than that, if you become somebody older in your life who's a Celtic supporter through the ages, You give them this book, and it's honestly, it's a big, thick book. It makes a nice Christmas present. You give them this book, then you'll not see them for the rest of Christmas Day. You'll have to drag them to the table to get their turkey and stuff in, because there'll be head in the book saying, I remember that game, I was there, that sort of stuff. And it's become a labour of love. I mean, obviously it's got to be a book that makes money and such like, but I've never worked on a project like this that has touched me so deeply. And I have to say that the reason for that, it's the quality of the material. If you go back to the 60s and that, Jock Stein, he realised that, at the start of the decade, Rangers are in the ascendancy. And Jock early on realised that if he can get media attention on his team, he begins to drive the media agenda. So Jock allows photographers, Simon at Rangers just was not doing. And it worked. It worked absolutely brilliantly. Now Jock wouldn't let anybody take a loan of him. He dictated what the news agenda was going to be. But Jock knows a good picture when he sees it. There's a couple of training pictures, and you see Jock working with these players. And there's a great picture of legend has it that if you'd been mucking about at training or not doing the working hard enough, if the ball went in a puddle down at C Mills, that the person who's been mucking about how to go and get it. And I've got a great picture of Jimmy Johnson. He's half into this great big puddle on the beach, and he's looking to fish the ball out. He's laughing. Everybody's laughing. It's just great. But that sort of thing, you don't see pictures of any other club or any other set of players. Obviously, the photographer's been with them all day, and it has paid off. You've got a wonderful set of pictures, and you look at Celtic and you think, they're doing well. You can see what they're doing at training. You can see the work they're putting in. You can see that they're enjoying it, and it puts a smile on your face. There's pictures also from before the 65 Cup final, which was obviously the breakthrough. And it's a lovely picture in the sun. They've got them posing for the camera, and it's just lovely, honestly, lovely.
After seeing the book and after flicking through the 1957 Cup final pictures, and I've read a lot about that final, but I contacted David Potter, who's wrote a lot of Celtic books, and I contacted David and I said, David, because it was around the day of the game, the date of the anniversary of the game, and I'm looking through these pictures, and in my mind I'm selecting one with your permission that I can put on the cover, and I'm saying, right, we always do a cover story. So I contact David and he says, well, what do you want about, the build up the game? And I said, no, I want the game. I'm reliving these pictures. I can see the crowd in the background. So I want you to be there now. So he sent it to me, and it's in the next issue, but I was lucky enough, as the editor, I get to read everything first and I get to decide what goes in. And it's just a beautiful piece, and the picture he paints, and he done a beautiful thing. He put the goal scorers in capital letters, so they stood out. It's just a simple thing and in bold.
Yeah.
And I just thought at that time, Celtic was going through the doldrums. That must have been, it's still a record in a domestic cup final, I think, anyway. And it must have been the pride that them fans and them pictures must have felt when they were walking out in that stadium, up Mount Florida or wherever they were going. It must have given them more pride than they'd had ever at a football match. And then you speak about Jock and then Seaman and that, 65. I've been lucky enough to interview a lot of the players that played in the famous Lisbon line era, and they talk about 65 being the defining moment when Celtic became this world power. The pictures, and I can't speak highly enough about the book because, I've seen the pictures, and when you said that, you've offered them to Celtic, I hope one day Celtic put all of them on display and the punters can come in and view them, because they're just part of our history. And there's a saying, every picture tells a story. But some of these, I want to know the story because, I've never seen Jimmy Johnson with his Alsatian dog. I've never seen him with a shotgun. I've never seen him with a shotgun. Shane, yeah. What sticks out for me as well, I love the 60s and the fashion in the pictures. It's just brilliant, I love that mod look. There's a brilliant picture of Bobby Lennox, and he's doing the wife's hair, because I didn't know Bobby was from a hairdressing background, but he's doing the wife's hair in this picture. And he's wearing a beautiful Fred Perry.
He is.
And the hair is as neat as can be, and as was all the players then, before they moved into the 70s, and then everything went pear-shaped with free love.
Yeah. Those pictures of Bobby doing his wife's hair, I showed them to my wife just to get another sort of aspect. So she's obviously in a hair doing as well. And the thing she commented was she saw Bobby's wife and she thought, and she said right out loud, it hadn't even occurred to me, that woman looks like a Miss World contestant. She is absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful woman. And again, it's just seeing the pictures from a different point of view. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right enough. That is a bonny lassie. And I like the way you're talking about the fashions. Marie Clark, actually, John Clark's daughter, she did an introduction for me about the power of old photos and told me a story about the family. They had lost some of their old pictures. And I was lucky enough to find pictures of Marie as a toddler in 1967. And she's with her mother. And so I sent the pictures to Marie. Marie, give her due. She first checked me out. I just contacted her out of the blue. And she checked out who I was, found out was I a proper guy or some sort of nutter. But she checked me out as soon as she sort of got to trust me. Because of lockdown, I've not met her, but I keep saying I'll come through. I'll give you a book. I've sent her books, but I'll sign the book, and I want to give this to your dad. I want to give this to your brother. But she loved, her mother loved the pictures of herself in 1967 because she says, my mother always hated hats. She never liked to wear a hat to a wedding. But in this picture, she's wearing a hat. And this sparked for them around their family table a great big discussion on, Mum, what are you doing wearing a hat? It's a sombrero, but it's waiting for, she was actually at Lisbon, Marie's mother, but they're waiting for, it's a kind of a mock top picture. They're waiting for him to come home from Lisbon, and she's excited because she's going to go on her holidays now. And there's a cherubic sort of picture of Marie as she is 2 years old at that point. But her mother looks through the pictures and she remembers the dress she was wearing. Then on the day of the homecoming at Celtic Park, she remembers the coat she was wearing there and how well she looks in it. And she commented, I wish I'd turn my face when you're taking that picture. But that sort of thing. And it's just another example of what people are finding in this. And although, I'm very football oriented, but when you find people looking at things like, wasn't John Thompson's fiancée really a bonny looking lassie? And again, I hadn't thought of that either, but you've got John Thompson with his fiancée. I'd never seen a picture of Margaret before, and there's a lovely picture of them arm in arm on there, which was really touching. But I like what you say about the fashion. There's a couple of Jock, again, in a almost a sort of Blues Brothers narrow tie, dark suit. Looks absolutely great. Brilliant.
There's one of John Clark as well with Billy McNeil, and the two of them are just like what a partnership they were on the pitch.
Yes. Yeah.
But they look, they look like, like two boys about to go on the scooter to Brighton for a mud rally. The ace faces.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
And you mentioned Marie Clark there. It's just an awful shame. John has never wrote a book, and his story, because of his connection with Celtic, throughout the decades after he stopped playing, and he's so well respected. Every manager that come in, every player that come in, and he refuses to write a book.
I know.
I think he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, So that's why it's important again that we see these pictures of a different side of John as well, because most of us only know him for being in the dugout with Martin O'Neill, being a Lisbon Lion, being assistant to Billy, whatever it was, it was football stuff. But sometimes we forget that, like when they go home and they close the door, a dad, a granddad, a brother, and sometimes we lose sight of that because we look at them in kind of, I wouldn't say hero status, but, they inspire us because of the performance on the pitch. And then I want to push forward now because, we spoke about all these beautiful photographs. We can take a picture now and we can load it up to social media in a matter of minutes or even seconds. But back in the day, these photos were taken, especially the ones that taken at games. How did they get back in time to make the late edition of a newspaper? Or if it was a midweek game, how would they deliver? Because no internet. How would they deliver to that when you got your morning paper, which was where you got your news then? How was these pictures in it? And how were the pictures
this was my job actually for before computers changed the entire world in the early 1980s. This was my job. I used to sit in the office, and I was working at that point on a Saturday afternoon. We would work on the Sporting Post. I grew up in Dundee, and the Sporting Post came out at 5 o'clock on a Saturday evening. And the trick was at that point that you had the paper ready for when the guys had walked down the hill from Dens Park or Tannadice Park, and it had to be ready in the time that they'd left. The final whistle goes, and it takes them about 15 to 20 minutes to walk down the road. So we've got to get a newspaper out on the streets ready for them to buy as they're going to the train station. And Celtic supporters would have walked by on their way to the trains, and we would have had a sporting paper to put in their hands and ask them for their 12 pence or whatever it was. And we sold a lot of papers that way. So we had to get a paper out in 20 minutes. And remember, there's no computers at this point. We had to do this in old hot metal. So the runners would sit beside the photographers at the side of the pitch, and you've got to get a spool to us on 20 minutes at half time and on 75 minutes. And hopefully we get one of the goals or one of the great incidents of the match to put in that. They hand the spool of negatives to the runners. They hurtle down the hill, deliver it to our offices in the city centre. We get it developed. You get it etched into it's an etching machine, makes it into a plate for the papers. Well, actually, sorry, before that, you've got to get the news editor will get what we used to call a contact sheet. And that was a miniature of the negatives just at life size. So we're looking at all the negative pictures, but there's a way you can look at them, shine light through them to show what they'll look like when they're developed. And at that point, you have to, what we'd call notch the picture, which meant that you cut a tiny sliver out the bottom of it, which denoted to the guys developing the picture, this is the picture we want. So that goes down to the processing. They get it back up within about 5 to 6, 7 minutes maybe. We put it on a page, slap it in, hot metal, lock it up, send it away. You've got the rest of the paper, and you've got the journalists writing. They've got separate runners who would bring down their notes, or in later days probably, they would phone it in. Would be girls on the desk who would sit with earphones on and take the reports from the journalists at the game. And because they were lassies and just employed on a part-time basis, they didn't know anything about football. So they would type what they heard. And sometimes you had to decipher, what does this mean? Charlie Nicholas, a famous one I remember, Charlie Nicholas tried a quick fire pot. And I'm thinking, what on earth is a quick fire pot? It turned out that the reporter had said a quick fire shot. It took me a week out that sort of thing. But I mean, there was another one. The ball came across the pitch, and Billy McNeil threw a flute at it. And I'm thinking, he threw a flute at it? What? But he'd obviously thrown a foot at it. But that sort of thing, you had to work that out just damn quick. You got it locked up in the paper. I'll not go into the entire details, but the presses were waiting to roll. You got them out, and you got these pictures and this news report, all the scores, waiting for the guys coming down the road. There would be features. Every city had an evening paper like that, and it is a horrible, terrible symptom of the modern world that these things don't exist anymore. I loved the Sporting Post. I used to go through the scores and think, right, if Mansfield Town had got a draw with Crewe Alexandra instead of getting beat, how much would that have raised them up the table? And I spent an hour, 2 hours on a Saturday night just looking at these things and imagining, and that's how you learned about football. But the photographer might have taken 30 pictures, but only 1 or 2 were notched. So all those negatives we kept, every single one of them. They were put in little negatives packets, stored in folders. When the folder was big enough at the end of the year, you put it in an envelope and it sat on a shelf. And those things have sat there for 50, 60, 70 years sometimes and just do nothing. I'm not allowed to say gathering dust because my archivist manager says, if you say that my archive's dusty, I'll sue you. But it is. So they're just sitting there waiting, right? And they're waiting for somebody like me and Phil and look at all these negatives and think, like, this one was never used, but here is an absolutely superb picture of Bertie Peacock or somebody like that. And bear in mind, we had photographers all over the country at every single game. because for the Sunday Post, you would send photographers to all the games, and DC Thompson's didn't use freelancers. We sent our own photographers. So I have got this repository of game after game, week after week, season after season, decade after decade on shelves, and they're all marked just sort of Celtic versus Dunfermline 1964. And I get those out and I look at them, I get them developed, some of them, and I find absolute gold. Guys, I could have filled this book 4 or 5 times. Some of the pictures aren't great, but other ones, it's just wonderful stuff. And I've been contemplating how else can I use it? Can I put out another book? And one of the things I think I'll maybe do is do a book like Celtic on their travels around Scotland and show, because I always take a great support with them and it's always colourful. And I'm trying to get from that, because everybody went to the games with their dads and such like, and I'm going to try and get, here's you on a trip to Airdrie, or here's you on a trip to Dundee or Aberdeen or Dunfermline or Edinburgh, and I'll fill it up with pictures of the Celtic players with the support in behind them, because I keep finding beautiful pictures, honestly, great stuff, right up to the days of Charlie Nicholas, right up to all the way through the Lisbon era, the great era, but even going back to the 50s and that, and I've got all these wonderful pictures, and I'll need to make another book. I'll need to persuade my publishing manager that there's another book in this, because I've got so many pictures, guys. It's unbelievable, really, what I've got. I used a lot of the sort of getting into people's houses pictures in this one, and you find great stuff like Stevie Chalmers playing in his back garden with his kids, and one of his kids has got Pele's shirt on, and it's just amazing, because Stevie had swapped shirts with Pele after the Scotland-Brazil game, 68 maybe, and it's just gold. And I wish I could find Stevie's son and say, have you still got Pele's shirt? But I mean, it's amazing. How amazing is your dad? There's 2 boys. One of them's in the 67 shirt that Stevie Chalmers had worn, and a shirt from 67. I think he maybe lost his 67 shirt. But there's him in a classic Celtic shirt, and the other wee boy in Pele's shirt. And you just never see pictures like that nowadays. And I'm, as I say, I'm proud to bring them. And I get an absolute boost when I see a Celtic supporter. I've actually presented this book to a couple of mates who are Celtic supporters. A bloke lives over the road from me, old bloke. And I've watched him go through it, and his eyes light up when he sees, you know what, I remember that. I was there. Or, I remember when the barriers in the jungle were like that. There were a crossbeam on the top, made it difficult to sit on top, because I used to like to sit on top, but my father would perch me on there. And there's the jungle with the barrel roof on the top, and then you show him a picture of when the new roof had gone on the jungle, and he says, geez, I don't remember it being as high as that. And, I've kind of persuaded him that I've not doctored the pictures, but it was just that he was used to seeing it from the jungle, whereas I've got a picture of it looking into the jungle from a low angle, and it looks ridiculously high. But that sort of stuff, I would urge you, if you've got an old Celtic person in your life, give them this book and then watch them go through it. You'll get 1,000 talking points out of it, because there's stuff like, I've got a picture of the Celtic's first league championship win under Jock Stein up Motherwell. And Third Park, Celtic only needed a draw, and even then, but Third Park is absolutely heaving with Celtic supporters. But there's a bit, you'll remember this yourself, police used to sometimes jump into the crowd and arrest somebody, and people would scatter aside, and there's a great picture of the police, and they're jumping in and they're arresting this poor soul, and he's getting carted away. And it just reminds you of what football was like in those days, when everybody crowded in together and you'd all gone on a journey away. It's just wonderful stuff. Sometimes they used to let the kids spill onto the cinder track, and people would climb up the railings or the stanchions of the floodlights to get a better view. At that Celtic game particularly, there's a lot of Celtic supporters on the roof, and it makes you worried for their health and safety, how they got on the roof of the Motherwell shed like that. But that sort of stuff, and to be honest, it's difficult to not get sort of dewy-eyed and reminisce about, I remember that day, and it's wonderful stuff. Honestly, wonderful stuff.
Well, that Brazil jersey has got my mind going now. I've two little stories about players getting jerseys. John Fallon's wife Essie, Lord of mercy on her, we attended her funeral last year, and the priest had said, she was the first wag in the area, before wags were. But John would bring home so many jerseys that he would exchange with, opposition teams, and the kids would wear them to PE school, and but she would always wash them first. So these were match-worn jerseys. But I think in '68, Celtic played Man United in a friendly or a charity game, I think. And Nobby Stiles exchanged jerseys with John.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And John said to Nobby, "Will you get it signed?" So John came home that evening with a signed 1968 European Cup winners jersey. And he placed it in the kitchen. The next day when John went to look for the jersey, Essie had boiled washed it because someone had wrote all over it. So now he had a Man United jersey with no signatures that was boiled washed. So that was one. And just before I move on from the Fallons, John was sent to do a supporters function up north, and he brought the Scottish Cup. And the next morning he was lying in bed, and the police came to the door with his two sons. His two sons had been running up and down the street with the Scottish Cup. So can you imagine that happening now?
I know.
And the other story was a brilliant one from I do live events with players, and we do evenings with them. And George McCluskey, Charlie Nicholas claimed that he swapped jerseys when they played Ajax with Cruyff. But George McCluskey, it was actually George McCluskey who went in the dressing room because he said Cruyff was having a massage and a cigarette, and he went in and they exchanged jerseys. George's brother wore the jersey playing five-a-side football. Came home, and the mother washed the jersey, and she hung it on the fire to dry, and it went on fire. So, these are things that these are just brilliant stories from players that over the years. So, they've been brilliant. And you mentioned Marie Clark there. I just flicked back to that while I was reading the book. I didn't know this, but John had lost a lot of, or the Clark family have lost a lot of photographs and memorabilia in the fire.
That's right, yeah.
So they must be so happy to see these pictures.
I was looking for somebody to do an introduction to the book, and I was thinking of Bertie. And I have to say that Bertie is the most photogenic man you've ever seen. He's absolutely, every picture you see Bertie in, he looks like a male model. He looks fantastic. But anyway, I was thinking, who can I get to do an intro for the book? And I was in touch with Joe Bloggs, the guy who runs or helps run the Celtic Wiki, who has been a great help to me, actually, I have to say. I must say that he's been a really kind, generous guy. Once he got to know me and decided, right, I'm not some sort of somebody trying to take a rise here or somebody trying to take an advance on him, he's been so helpful coming forward with information. And it was him who suggested, well, Marie Clark she's very active on social media at times. If you're looking for somebody to do an intro, she always comes across really well. So again, like I say, I'd contacted her out of the blue. And it was only then that she said, well, they were moving house, I think, and a lot of their stuff was in storage, and there was a fire at the storage facility, and they lost a lot of their memorabilia, which, I mean, that's incredible, because John would obviously have had some superb memorabilia. So I've attempted to send her, as many pictures as I can. I can only send them in sort of digital form, but she's going to get some of them hopefully printed up. And I used her, actually, I was saying to her, like, now here's this picture of Celtic with the Scottish Cup, and here's Jock scene with Jimmy McGrory right in the middle of all the players. Can you tell me where that was? And she asked her father, and her father was able to say, oh yeah, here's where the hotel was. We were always opposite Paisley Limited. I've forgotten exactly what the hotel was called, and I was agog to hear. As soon as I knew that Marie had got a book, I was agog. a message or emailed her and said, "Have you shown the book to your dad? What does he think of it?" And she wrote back immediately and said, "Oh, yeah, I got the books. Thank you very much. My dad loves it." It was just those couple of words. My dad loves it, and I'm thinking, I've a book that I have written sitting here in my wee office, and it's gone to John Clark, and he's looked through my book and he says he loves it. Now, John's not a sort of effusive sort of bloke, but well, I'll go on my grave. That's a feather in my cap. That's a medal you can pin on my chest. John Clark loves my book. Read it and weep, boys. See what I've done there.
But even before you speak about the 57 and 60s, and you mentioned John Thompson there, like I'm looking through the photos, and as I said, I love the fashion. But when I'm going through the John Thompson stuff, I see a Hornet cartoon strip about him. But I'm curious about, and I checked the date, because it's 3p or something. But it's 1972. So somebody has taken John's story and put it in a comic book, because we all grew up with comic books. Something I don't think I don't know if kids still get them. I wouldn't imagine with so much and tablets and that. But that was the one thing. Even all of these beautiful pictures have, and I went. So somebody decades later tells this story to children, which is brilliant. I thought, because John's story it's a heartbreaking story, but somehow, somewhere along the line, children have been taught this history, and it kind of took me aback, because I wasn't aware of that.
No, I don't know if you know Daisy Thompson, who I work for. They're the people who did the Beano and the Dandy and obviously the Bruins and such like. And not only have we kept all these football from the newspapers, but we've kept all the old comics going right back to the 1930s, and all the artwork as well, because these things were lovingly drawn out. I think it was maybe about double the size of the way they appeared in the comics. And these are works of art. It was the artist who drew Oor Willie and the Bruins was called Dudley D. Watkins, and his artwork is kept under lock and key, but you should see the quality of this stuff. And he was so prolific. He would bang out a comic strip in an hour or so, and you look at the art and you think, you just used 2 thicknesses of pens, wonderful stuff. It won't have been him who's drawn the Hornet, but I used to, as a kid, I used to get the Hornet and the Wizard and the Victor and the Hotspur, and I was looking through the archive. Now, I have to give credit, it was my archive manager, David Powell, who said, who's not really a football guy, but he said, you know what, you should look at the Hornet, because I'm sure that goalkeeper who died, he didn't really know the story, but he says, I'm sure that goalkeeper, he features in one of the Heroes series that the Hornet used to do. So again, guys, you've got to imagine me flicking through the bound up all the comics, and they put them in a book form. And there's the 1972, the entirety of the comic in one big volume, great big, like one of the old family Bibles you used to get, great big book. And I'm flicking through this, and I find the story of John Thompson done in sort of cartoon form. And to be honest, they embellish the story a wee bit. Well, there's certainly some bits in it that aren't quite factually true. But on the front page and then the back on, and he is held up as a hero. And they usually in those comics, there's stories about people who'd won the Victoria Cross, or people who'd been missionaries to Africa, which was a favourite at the time, and presented them as heroes. And to see this of John in a boys' comic, it's a piece of history itself. It's nearly 50 years old itself. But again, that deserves to be shown out again. That deserves to go on a wall somewhere. Can I quickly tell you the mysterious story of, in the book, I've got a picture of a mural that was presented to the John Thompson's local pub. But try as I might, because it was lockdown, I was set, right, I've found this mural and it's presented to this pub that's in Fife, and I'm off to Fife, and I'm going to find where this mural is, because the pub's still open, and I'll find people around about, I'll stop old guys in the street. But I couldn't do any of it because it was lockdown. So I'm short on the history of this mural, but seemingly it hung in that pub in this wee Fife village for something like 70 or 80 years. And I'm wondering if it's still there. And as soon as lockdown finishes, I'm off to Fife and I'm going to find out, because the picture I've got is just a black and white picture, but this is a bonny wooden mahogany thing with a painting of John in it and his birth and death dates in it, and it's a thing of beauty. It's a piece of Celtic memorabilia that more people should know about. More people probably do know about it than me, of course, but I was just so touched with it. And then to find, again, on the 50th anniversary of John's death, the Dundee Courier had gone and interviewed his brother, and his brother was an old man by that point. I think he was maybe getting on a bit dawdled. But we've got a picture of John's brother with his wife, and they're sitting 50 years later, and they've got John's Scotland cap and his Scotland jersey. And again, you find it is absolutely touching that you finding that photo. It's like handling a bit of history. It's an old crackly photo, and you think people have forgotten this. People don't realise this, and I'm just putting it in the book and thinking, there we go. There's a lovely picture that people won't have seen. It's just another wee bit of history. Love it. I absolutely love it. I have to say it. I'm so touched by some of this stuff that it's difficult to get through it without a lump in your throat. It's so nice.
And if there's any listeners out there who can throw more light on the John Thompson image or placard,
mural it was, yeah.
The mural, and I'm sure there will be, because
yes.
there's a lot of people. David Potter lives up there, and I'm sure Dave will be able to throw some light on it. Now, just before we wrap up, I just want to let the readers know. Firstly, the book is brilliant, and it's not a normal book because, although there's text in it, it's predominantly about the pictures and full images. When I started first, I thought, this is one of them books you have on a coffee table in the posh hotel. But then, as I flicked through it, I straight away I realised, no, this isn't. This is. It's fabulous, and I just want to just give the listeners. This isn't a visual. It's not YouTube, so we can't show them the book. But we will have the images up on social media and in the fanzine or whatever. But I just want to let them know it's broken into sections. John Thompson, Celtic in the 50s, team lineups, training, away from the game, which includes that dapper picture of Bobby Lennox in the Fred Perry, 1965, 1967, racing club, which we haven't spoken about, but them pictures are amazing. Jock Stein, the green, white and silver, which is obviously a bit of trophies. Never 12 again, wearing the hoops, the Celtic family. There's a section on the Leeds United game, and it finishes with Celtic heroes. So there's much more than what we were able to speak about today.
Yeah,
I think you've spoken about some of your favourites. I think if you could pick one picture from the 320 pictures in the book, which is your favourite?
Well, as I've talked about the best picture in the book. The best pictures are from 57. The picture that most touches me is Bobby Evans, but it's the pictures of Jimmy Johnson going to his welding job when he's just a wee laddie, 17 or 18-year-old, and he looks like, it's difficult to describe what he looks like. He looks like some sort of beat poet, or he looks like he should have a guitar slung over his back. And it's a sort of grimy place that he's in. I've got pictures of him on the way, and there's a sort of industrial wasteland in the back. And it's Jimmy. He looks so young that he almost doesn't look like himself. And he's got this black skull cap on, a black tammy, and he's in his working stuff with his working boots, which I believe he used to train in at times. And he looks incredible. These pictures, again, it deserves to be one of these posters. You see these old black and white pictures from, I don't know, the war or something, and you see a street scene. Well, this picture of Jimmy just walking, his hands in his pockets a lot of the time. And it was one of these instances where I came across a roll of negatives, and there was 6 or 7 in it. And I'm puzzling my way through it and thinking, which one of these am I going to use? Because they're all so good. So at the end, I just thought, I can't miss any of these out. So I've used almost them all. There's only a few of them actually doing the welding that I've held back. But those pictures, they evoke a time, the personality of a young laddie who is obviously talented beyond belief. But in those days, he's got to go to his welding apprenticeship. And you see pictures of him welding, and he's just like any other teenager. You see him walking along the road, and he's, like I say, he looks like a beat poet. It's these, I think, I know there's a Jimmy Johnson museum at Caskin Park, and again, when lockdown finishes, I'm going to go and visit that, and I'm going to go and offer them these pictures, because they deserve a wider audience than they're getting. And I mean, there's great pictures as well of Jimmy. He's obviously nicked some great big iron bar from his work, and he's taken it home, and he's in his front room, and he's doing press-ups or bench presses with this iron axle thing to build up his upper body strength. And again, it's just lovely. It's you can see his old gas fire, and he's got a state-of-the-art 13-inch black and white telly in the background. And you know how people used to have the sort of lace doilies type things on the back of the armchairs. He's got all that, and it's just lovely. It's Jimmy being Jimmy. It's just wonderful. And actually, if I just finish on one, there's a bizarre picture of Jimmy hanging up the name when he buys a wee bungalow in 1969 or something. And the name he's given his wee bungalow is Estadio. And it's just that sort of touching thing that I'd never known that. It's almost a wee quirk of Jimmy's personality. The place where his greatest triumph is, he's named his house after it, and he's hanging up this very 1960s sign on his house. And it just wouldn't happen nowadays. It's honestly, it's lovely. But it's that sort of touching things. You'll need to look through it. Everybody need to look through it themselves, because every picture you come across, like Bobby Lennox with his new car, or Billy McNeil's got this really bonny Rover car, and they're proudly posing behind their cars, and it's got the number plate and everything, and it's just bizarre. You don't see that nowadays, but
certainly not. When I look at them Jimmy Johnson pictures, it reminds me of Kevin Rowland from Texas Midnight Runners.
Yes.
The hat, the boots, the jeans. I'm thinking, did Kevin Rowland, see this picture? Because it's like, I think it's the Young Soul Rebels album, and it just, because he's got his bag on the shoulder, and he's heading off, and that's what it reminded me of. But my favorite picture is a picture that I never thought I'd see, and it took me a few flicks through the book to find it. As I said, I told you before that John Fallon has become a good friend for many years, and there's some cracking pictures of John in it. But John told me he never played for Celtic without wearing a Hoops jersey. He always wore the Hoops jersey under his jersey, or under his goalkeeper's jersey. And when he went to Motherwell, he said he'd done the same. Now, and I thought this was just folklore. There's a picture of them all sitting in a dressing room, and there's John in the bundle, in black and white, with the Hoops jersey on. Yeah. So I never doubted him, but if I had to, I'd be eating me words now. So I got to see John in the Hoops jersey, and I went. But I didn't notice on the first few flicks through the book. That's what I'm saying. Every time you pick this book up, you're going to find something else. I've got the book. I've been lucky enough to be sent it. How do fans get their hands on this book? And can we buy individual pictures?
Yes, you can. There's start with the book. There's it'll be everywhere. The Celtic official shop is carrying it. You get it on Amazon. It was out of stock on Amazon. No idea why, but it's now back in stock on Amazon.co.uk. Celtic shop will do it, but fastest, because we can send them directly from the warehouse. So if you've got a pen and a paper, write this down: dcthompsonshop.co.uk, and they will bundle up for you as fast as you like and send it. So that's www.dcthompson, without a P in the middle, shop, that's all one word, .co.uk, and you'll get it in there. Now, the pictures themselves, some of them, although very, very few of them, in fact, I can barely think of an example, they're all DC Thompson's, they're all our copyright, so we can sell them all. So there's a website, I don't think they're up there yet, but at some point I'll see if I can hurry the girls along to do this. There's a website called photoshopscotland.com, and they'll all be up there. There's lots of other pictures up there, but you'll find it in there, and every single one of them can be bought. I don't think we send out the digital form, but we send you it out as a print as big as you like, and you get them from there. It's Photoshopscotland, all one word, .com, and they'll be there. But you can get the book anywhere. Waterstones, if there's anywhere in Ireland that would like to stock the book, then get in touch. But yeah, you get it anywhere. Wherever good books are bought, as they say.
Well, Steve, firstly, congratulations on the book.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I believe you're going to send me another one now because of the one about lifting over the turnstiles, because I've twisted your arm on that one, because I'd love to see that. But as I say, congratulations on the book. It's certainly it's a brilliant Christmas present, and I think for young and old fans as well, because they'll definitely get something from it. And
it's only £19.99, I have to say.
So that's a great bargain as well. Great to get that.
That's a bargain, for the size and weight of this book. And
it is. I'm surprised how cheap it is actually. There you go. But anyway, listen, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to chat. You're the first Dundee United fan we've had on. Ricky Ross has toned us down.
Ricky's a good guy.
He is indeed. I've enjoyed his gigs many a time. Now, I look forward to a second volume of the book, but hopefully, if we can get back to Scotland, we do a live show called Celtic AM before pre-match games. And hopefully, if you get back, you can get your ass down to Glasgow with the book.
Love to.
Maybe do a signing, and maybe, have one that people can just flick through on the day.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will get through this pandemic sooner rather than later, because we're mad to get back to the football and back to some kind of normality. But you've definitely brought something into the domain of Celtic fans and Celtic historians that possibly was missing, which was a really, really good photo book. And I hope Celtic take it up in the offer. And I think Jim at the Jimmy Johnson Academy will definitely take it up in the offer.
Yeah.
So all I can say, Steve, is thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure. Absolute great fun. Thank you.
Brilliant.
So I suppose that's the first non-Celtic fan we've had on the podcast, but it was great to have him on. Dundee United fan, as I said, big football fan, and if you get a chance to have a look at this book or buy this book, I highly recommend it. Absolutely brilliant. Great to have Steve on the show. So folks, I hope you're all keeping well during yet another lockdown. Over here in Ireland, we're on level 5. I think it's level 3 across the water. Hopefully everyone can stay positive. Times are tough. I know a lot of people in the entertainment business never got the chance to get back to work. A lot of the musicians that we would normally go to see on match day, the bars are closed in Glasgow, the hotels are closed. So it must be such a hard time for everybody. But you know what? If we stick together, we can get through this. And we're here for the long road. And we will get back to Celtic Park. We will get back to going to games. This can't last forever. Just can't. We're going to have to learn to cope with this going forward. And hopefully, and I say hopefully, sooner rather than later. Thanks to all the contributors who have sent articles in for issue 111. Working on it at the moment. Keeps me busy during this lockdown. There's a couple of copies left of 110 if you can buy them online there, or you can buy the digital edition. Alternatively, you can subscribe, quarterly or yearly subscriptions, and we'll throw in a gift or maybe a t-shirt or a badge for anyone that subscribes. Also check out our new t-shirt range. Again, if you pre-order for Christmas, we'll throw in a little gift. Once again, thanks to our producer Ron McQuillan. And once again, folks, if you like what we're doing and you would like to support us, you can visit CelticFanzine.com, where you can become a member, subscribe, buy or donate for the price of a pint. And thanks for everybody who has listened so far, and I much appreciate the support. Don't forget, folks, you can download the new app. It's free, and you'll have access to all the podcasts, articles, daily news, our video content, and all the stuff about the fanzine and our online shop at the touch of a button on your phone or tablet. All episodes of the podcast are now available on all platforms, so don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button on your preferred platform and you will never miss an episode. As I said in previous podcasts, we were working on some stuff for the YouTube channel, but again, we've had to shelve that because of the COVID, but we will be back hopefully in December when this is lifted. We can get back to doing that. Once again, thanks to our episode sponsor, St Margaret's Celtic Supporters Club. Big shout out to Hilly and the boys, doing a great job there. Club I've been with from day one, and I really miss getting out with the boys, getting to Glasgow, but if we stick together, we'll get out of this. I know a lot of businesses are struggling, so I just can't thank the ones who are supporting us, and the Celtic Supporters Clubs. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this podcast or the fanzine. So many thanks to those who have supported us. If you would like to support us, don't forget to email us at info@celticfanzine.com or contact us through the website or message us on social media. Thanks very much for all the comments on the last show. Keep them coming in. Remember, we want suggestions for guests, and if you have a story to tell, get in contact with us. We will be back on Tuesday with episode 36, when we have another guest opening up their Celtic soul to us. Folks, enjoy the weekend. I know it's going to be a quiet one. Hopefully we get the result on Sunday we really want up in Aberdeen, and we can kick on. We'll be back Tuesday and we'll look back on the game against Aberdeen, and we look forward to Lille, and we'll get Kieran Kenny to open up his Celtic soul to us. So folks, stay tuned, stay safe and keep the faith.